MOP. What's good, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the MOP podcast. I'm your host, Mario. This is the Mario Operandi podcast. And once again, I got a host from the Lockdown Media. They do a great job there. I've been interviewed some hosts from Lockdown. They have been very nice with me. And today we got here Philip Roseman Wright. How you doing, man? Thanks for being here with us.
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me on.
Cool, man. So we got lots to talk about here today. About the Magic. Obviously, you covered the Magic. Where can people find you and the great job that you do with Locked On?
Yeah, the best place obviously to find me is wherever you download podcasts or YouTube. Just search for Locked On Magic. You can find me on X or Twitter or whatever it's called now at @PhilipRR_OMD. And if you want some of my written material, you can find me at OrlandoMagicDaily.com.
Cool. So everybody go check Locked On Magic and go check Locked On NBA. They do an amazing job. I think they're one of the only companies that has like a one podcast for every single team in the NBA, in the NFL, and in another sport. So go check Locked On NBA. I watch it daily to learn more about basketball and to also get better when it comes to talking about this sport. So once again, man, Philip, thanks for being here with us, man. I really appreciate it. So let's get right into it, man. The Orlando Magic, obviously, they are a very young team. Um, but I wanted to know your opinion and your assessment from last year from the Magic.
I mean, yeah, obviously it was a really good year for Orlando in a lot of ways. Like you said, they were a young team last year. I think they were the fourth youngest team in the league. They were led by a second-year player in Franz Wagner and really put a lot of trust in, and obviously the number one overall pick in Paolo Banchero, but still a rookie who is going to make rookie mistakes. I think last year they only had two players on the roster older than 30. And one of them was traded, and the other one was signed like late in the season. So this was a really young team trying to find their way. And yes, their record wasn't fantastic. They were 34 and 48 last year, but they were still the last team eliminated from the Eastern Conference playoff picture. And if it were not for an injury-filled 5-20 start, we could be talking about a team that was playing in the play-in tournament and getting a taste of what postseason basketball is going to be about. And that's clearly what their goals are for this year.
Yeah, obviously, when we've seen play for Germany, we're gonna see him play the USA team tomorrow. We have seen how Paolo Banchero has been doing, playing as a backup center for Team USA. And last year was a great year for Banchero, especially he won Rookie of the Year. Um, he was like my favorite player from that draft. Obviously, with Chet Holmgren. I'm a Denver Nuggets fan, but I always try to follow the new young blood and the new players that are coming up. And I really like Banquero the way he played. And I've been thinking, I was thinking that the way he played, his physicality, that I thought before Steve Kerr put him like a backup center, I was thinking maybe he can play some five, some four. I'm not saying that he's gonna be obviously the starting center for the Magic, but in some occasions, in some possessions, he can play. He can play the five. What do you think about Paolo's development, and now that he's now in this big stage with Team USA? How do you think about what he's been doing?
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously, when you bring in a rookie, you just want to keep things simple for them. Like
Yep.
I told I know, like my pal Josh Lloyd at Locked On Fantasy Basketball says this. I say this too. Rookies are bad. They're terrible. They don't know what they're doing. And as good as Paolo was, like this season, or you hope this season is the worst season of his career. That he will be significantly better. Significantly better as he plays more, obviously. And so um, it's it, what the Magic have to do now is they have to figure out, okay, how do we add extra layers to his game, and obviously the potential to play him a little bit at center and small ball lineups. There's certainly the potential to play him all over the place, and that
Yep.
versatility is something that the Magic really value in all of their players. I mean, you look at this roster. Paolo and Franz are both kind of ball handling, playmaking 6'10" guys. Like, yeah, they can score for themselves, but what really is intriguing about this team and intriguing about those two players specifically is their ability to move the ball and handle the ball at their size. Banchero averaged nearly 8 free throw attempts per game last year. he is a foul magnet. He's going to create contact because they're, you're either too small to guard him or you're
Yep.
too big and too slow to guard him, and that's such a huge advantage and something that he can really build on. What we've seen from him with Team USA is a sort of an unexpected development and evolution of his game. Like I think a lot of us expect him to be better and more efficient offensively, which just comes with age and experience. But coming into the draft process, his defense was a major question mark. And for Team USA, playing this backup center role, he has been surprisingly assertive and very confident defensively, blocking some shots, and really giving Team USA what they need. If he didn't defend, he wouldn't play. They'd go with Bobby Portis. They'd try Walker Kessler. But Paolo's held his own and really done a good job putting himself in a position to help Team USA and hopefully bring that back to Orlando where they can rely on it a little bit more defensively.
Yeah, obviously the block shots were amazing. He got like 3 or 4 in one game, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
He has been doing a great job there. Let's transition into something that I wanted to ask you. What is your opinion about these great players that are coming up? You know, like the Anthony Edwards, the Paolo Banqueros. That for some people in the media, they try, like, you know, when they see a young player that is playing well and that is part of a small market team, they always try to bring them to a bigger market team. You know, oh, let's bring Anthony Edwards to the Lakers, or Banquero in the future if he has some type of problem with Orlando that I don't think he's gonna have. But what do you think about these young players coming up that they are always like be trying to be, you know, portrayed as players that want to move? Do you think that Banquero is trying to follow that trend, or do you think that he's gonna stay here with Orlando?
I mean, there's two sides to that, and I think it's really important to remember both sides of these things. First and foremost, the player should absolutely have the right to do what they think is best for them. You know, when they hit free agency, and the Magic have had this experience before with Shaquille O'Neal and then with Dwight Howard to some extent. When a player hits free agency, they are a free agent. They have the choice to go where they want to go, and within the rules, obviously, because there's a
Yep.
salary cap. Um, there's very little anyone can do to stop it. I know Magic fans are freaking out a little bit about the prospect of Seattle getting an expansion team and Paolo wanting to go back home and play in Seattle. And if that's what Paolo wants to do, and there's nothing you can do about it. By the same token, though, the way the NBA structure is set up, you're drafted where you're drafted. You have 4 years under that rookie contract. In all likely, those players cannot make more money than re-signing with their team after that first extension. Anthony Edwards just signed, I think, a 4 or 5 year extension with the Timberwolves. So essentially, the way I look at it, as someone who follows a team in a small market, is you have 8 years to figure it out. You have
Yep.
8 years to build a championship contending team and put yourself in a position to retain that player for the long term. Because once you have them for those 8 years, they'll stay for as long as you'll have them. Then 8 years should be plenty of time to build that kind of a team. The Magic did it with Dwight Howard in 2009. There's obviously a little quirk in the salary cap and the collective bargaining agreement that allowed Shaq to leave after 4 years, but 8 years is plenty of time. Now, I think there are real issues with this perception around the league that these players don't want to be in these small markets. Anthony Edwards isn't leading this crusade. I think it was a Patrick Beverly quote that made people think, oh, maybe he wants out of Minnesota. Damian Lillard's been in Portland forever. Kevin Garnett stayed in Minnesota for a very long time before he forced his way out. There is a problem, I think, with the way NBA narratives and the way big media narratives, and I don't mean to sound like that, but I think generally the NBA just has a problem marketing its stars rather than marketing markets. Markets don't matter. Anthony Edwards can be a star anywhere. Dwight Howard felt like he needed to leave Orlando to go to a bigger pond when the reality was he was the leading vote getter in Orlando. He was still getting all the marketing opportunities with Adidas, with so many different, with Gatorade, with so many different companies from Orlando. And certainly since 2012, that has only increased with how interconnected our world is with media. So I think that I don't think, again, I don't think Paolo Banchero is going anywhere anytime soon. The Magic have done a good job building the foundations for a team that's going to be in the playoffs, if not this year, then next year. And is hoping to launch themselves into contention. They've certainly positioned themselves with their salary cap management and other things, position themselves to be a team that could be a player if everyone keeps growing at the rate that they hope that they're growing. At the end of the day, it's player decisions, and you can't really control that. And players should have the freedom to decide, hey, this isn't working. I want to go. I'd like to try something new. Or when they hit free agency, say like, hey, this opportunity came around. I can't pass that up. It's something that I think of it as an employer employee. As an employee, I want the freedom to move around if there's a better opportunity out there for me. So I'm not going to begrudge players that option, or take away that choice for them. But I do think that there is a lot of unnecessary hand wringing, but a lot of it's informed by a media culture and a media environment, and frankly, even a league culture and league environment that that puts the value on markets rather than stars. Stars are what drive this league, and ultimately, the problem that I think the NBA is still trying to figure out, and hasn't been aggressive enough trying to solve on their end is, well, what do we do if there's a star that wants to leave a championship environment? What happens if too many stars, if we got the Giannis thing coming out. Giannis essentially said, if Milwaukee's not in a position to win a championship, I'm going to open up my options and think about what else is out there. He's using his power as a star to stay in Milwaukee, but tell Milwaukee like, hey, I'm not here just to be here. You need to win championships with me. The ultimate fear I think the league has is, well, what happens if there is a star that decides, I'm leaving this championship team because I'd rather play for the Clippers or the Lakers or the Knicks or any of these other teams. And look, that's ultimately their decision to decide what's important for them. But the league does, I think, have to do a better job promoting their young stars. The Magic are the Magic. I get it. They're up and coming team. I think it's a little ridiculous they're only on national TV traditional national TV just one time. I think they are a
Like the
team.
Rockets, right?
Yeah, but I mean, but to that point though, the Rockets, Jabari Smith is a fine player. Jalen Green's an interesting player. The Rockets haven't proven anything yet. Orlando is a team that you could invest a little bit in, like Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Anthony Edwards is the star of stars on Team USA, and it was pretty easy to see that he could potentially be that kind of a star. Instead of taking advantage of that, the NBA doesn't have Anthony Edwards and the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that did make the playoffs last year, by the way,
Yep.
on traditional national TV until January. The Oklahoma City Thunder, I think, have 7 or 8 appearances on national TV, including NBA TV games. They made the play-in tournament last year and had a first-team All-NBA player. This perception that you can't be a star in smaller markets, to me, it's completely created by the NBA, and is a problem that they can fix a little bit. They can't fix how ESPN talks about them. I think they could a little bit, but they can't fix how ESPN talks about them and talks about their league. But they can fix, conditioning your audience to think like, oh, Oklahoma City's on. I get to watch Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, probably the MVP of the World Cup going on right now. I'm excited about that. The NBA doesn't create that excitement, and it hurts markets like Orlando when Orlando does get to that point.
Yeah, and as you mentioned it, Orlando is not a lot of it doesn't have a lot of games on national television, but the league is, in my opinion, and it's very obvious that they are trying to get all the juice from these superstars like LeBron, like Curry. It's not a coincidence that those teams, the Warriors and the Lakers, are on the top of national televised games. Um, but you said it very well. The NBA doesn't is not trying to promote the young players in smaller markets, and we're gonna see that maybe for the foreseeable future. I'm very excited as well for the Magic. Obviously, we got two players playing in the World Cup, Wagner and Banquero. The same with the Thunder. You got Gilgis Alexander. You got George Giddy. Ludor, you got a lot of young talent, and that's something that I also try to put in my platform. That we need to follow and we need to recognize these young talents, these young teams, because it's very easy to root for a team when they are champions, right?
Yeah, and like to that point, like even the Denver Nuggets, like last year, the Denver Nuggets were the champions. Were the champions last year. They were championship contenders really the whole season long. Yet it felt like everyone was surprised that they won, and
Yep.
some of that's, and Nikola Jokic is an MVP candidate, and some of that is they weren't on national TV a ton. They weren't treated like stars. This year alone, I think the Golden State Warriors have 41 national TV appearances, including NBA TV games. I know some people don't count those, and I tend not to, but all the lists include them. So I have to do it to remember the numbers. You can watch half of Golden State's games without living in San Francisco. The Los Angeles Lakers, I believe, have 40 national TV appearances this year, including NBA TV. And maybe there's some numbers that say the ratings are better when these teams are on TV more, but I think fans are also conditioned to watch these teams. They've been
Yeah.
conditioned forever because they've always, the Warriors less so, they're definitely taking advantage of Steph Curry, but they've always been able to watch the Lakers. They've always been able to watch the Knicks. And I think, honestly, I think that's a relic of a time before the internet when you needed those markets and those markets had pull. I think there's a lot more fans of the league in general, and the NBA should think about a strategy very similar to the NFL where everybody in this league is a star. There are stars everywhere in this league. We don't need big markets necessarily to sell our league. Our league sells itself.
Yeah, and obviously we got today. I'm a Chiefs fan also. We got the Chiefs against the Lions, so I'll be calling that game. Um, but what are your expectations for this year for the Magic? Some people have been hearing that some people got the Magic as a playing team. I don't think that that's like I think that that's obtainable. I think they can get there, as you mentioned. Maybe they can start tasting what it's like to be in the playoffs and playing more significant games. And also there, what do you think about the mid-season tournament? How do you think that teams are gonna approach that,
Yeah, I mean,
especially the
having
Magic?
said, yeah, yeah, having said everything I just said, like I'm not here sitting saying the Magic should be on national TV like 20 times. They haven't earned it, and that's to me that's what this season's about for the Orlando Magic. Last year they kind of got proof of concept that what they're doing works, or that what they're doing can be successful as they continue to improve and get better as young teams do. They finished year 29-28 after the 5-20 start, roughly a 500 record. They kind of tanked those last three games after they were eliminated from the playoffs. So 29-25 over 54 games. Like you're not writing home. You're not like saying, "Oh, this is a future championship team" quite yet. But it's like significant progress for a team and for a franchise that has only two playoff appearances in the last decade. So it certainly seems like the Magic are pointing in the right direction. I think so. The way the Magic put it, and I always love phrasing it this way. The way the Magic put it, their goal this year is to level up once again. And so they're not going to out and out say we're a playoff team. We're going to make the postseason this year. However, when you are the last team eliminated from playoff contention, there's only one place left to level up. And so I do think the expectation for the Orlando Magic this year is to make the postseason. Whether that's the playoffs as a top 6 seed, which I think is possible, but probably on the high end of what they can do, or making the play-in tournament. The most important thing the Magic can do this year is play pressure games. Figure out who actually fits this team when they're ready to compete for a playoff spot and who maybe doesn't, and what you actually need to compete at that level. Playing pressure games is probably the most important goal for the Magic. Whether they make the play-in tournament or not, seeing how this team reacts to a little bit of winning pressure and playing those pressure games is really important. And for that reason, I think the in-season tournament is actually really important for the Orlando Magic. I think they're in a group where they are capable of stunning some people and maybe sneaking in as one of the wild cards, or maybe sneaking in, or maybe even, honestly, possibly even winning the group. And I think every team in Orlando's group, it's Boston, Chicago, Toronto, Brooklyn, Orlando. I think every team in that group should feel the same. It's not that Boston's obviously the tournament favorite, but Boston feels very beatable, especially early in the season. They're going to be dealing with some changes. They're going to be figuring out how do we mix Kristaps Porzingis in. They're going to be learning how to live life without Marcus Smart. I think Boston is on a little bit of shaky ground. Meanwhile, Orlando, while they have a very, very difficult start to the season, very road-heavy start to the season, Orlando's got a lot of continuity. Orlando is going to, I think, really, and they're really focused on getting off to a good start after that 5-20 game. And if I'm the Magic organizationally, I'm telling Jamal Mosley, hey, make these games important. Make this feel like a playoff series. There's 7 games that the Magic play between the start of their group play in the in-season tournament and the end of their group play in the in-season tournament. They even start on the road. Treat this make this a dry run for a playoff series as much as you can. You play. I think in that group they play at Brooklyn for an in-season tournament game, back to back at Chicago, Then they play at Chicago again for their in-season tournament game.
Mm.
Then they come home. They play Toronto for the in-season tournament. Then they play, I think they play Toronto. Oh, no, they play at Indiana. Then they come home, play Toronto back-to-back versus Denver, and then they finish their in-season tournament run against Boston. Again, that's 7 games. Honestly, even if it's not the in-season tournament games, I go into that like 2-week span and say, we're treating this like a playoff series. We even get some, we even get one opponent twice. We need to win 4 of those 7 games. We need to play with the intensity that we would bring in April. Obviously, the team is still coming together. They're probably not going to be as sharp, but I really think the Magic can get a lot out of this in-season tournament. I don't know how teams are going to react personally to the in-season tournament. I think some of those earlier group games may feel regular and feel normal, but those later group play games, and especially when we get to the knockout, I think that's when teams will start taking it a little bit more seriously. And I think certainly the knockout rounds, anytime you put a trophy in front of these guys,
Yep.
they start competing. I think the knockout rounds are going to be some really fun basketball. And again, I think for a team like the Magic, the in-season tournament is exactly what that group needs to feel a little bit of that winning pressure and feel the intensity of some of these games.
I was gonna ask you about 𝕮𝕳𝕴𝕷𝕰, but you already answered it. Obviously, you're a great reporter. About the importance that Coach 𝕮𝕳𝕴𝕷𝕰 needs to put or needs to have in this team. You also already said it, that maybe try to approach those 7 games like a playoff series, and try to get the most out of this situation. Oh, you also mentioned that players got to get used to that, the mid-season tournament. Fans got to get used to that as well. So I think it's a great opportunity for teams like Orlando and other teams around the league to maybe gain some recognition, and elevating the stock of the team. Once again, thanks for being here, man. What we got here, the last question that I got for you, I don't want to take advantage of your time. I know that the Orlando Magic is, I think, the third team that spend or that has more salary cap. Even though teams, I think they have to spend like 90% before the start of the season for the salary cap. Where do you think that the Orlando Magic, even though they are a very young team, where do you think that maybe they can put some money, or to bring a player to the team? In what position do you think that would be more successful?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's definitely a big question for the Magic, and one of the questions they're going to try and answer this season. They did hit the salary floor this season, so they're set on the salary floor this season. They gave big contract to Joe Ingles, to Mo Wagner, $19 million combined to those 2 players, and certainly felt a little bit like an overpay, but it got them to that number, so they don't have to deal with any of the consequences of being under the salary floor. Um, I think honestly, like I've been telling my listeners this and telling my audience this. This is a season of discovery for the Orlando Magic. They don't know what we could say, yes, they need to probably upgrade their shooting guard position and get more depth and more shooting and all that stuff. But this season is about figuring out what this team actually needs to compete, what this team actually needs to get the most out of Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner, because at the end of the day, that's all that matters. So, Markel Fultz and Cole Anthony are on contract years. They're free agents at the end of the season. Is Markel Fultz the right point guard for this team? He had a great finish to last year, averaged around 16 points per game after the All-Star break, nearly 6-7 assists per game. He had a real big burst and started to look a little bit more like first overall pick Markel Fultz,
Yep.
than kind of struggling with injury Markel Fultz that he's been for most of his NBA career. We don't know what he actually is and what he can actually do. So now he's had a healthy summer for the first, a full healthy summer for the first time in his career. Provided he doesn't stub his toe again, and um, and we don't know what that looks like. Cole Anthony was really strong off the bench for much of last season. We don't know if he's the right fit. Jalen Suggs had an interesting end to his season as he kind of put injuries behind him. But we're 2 years in with him. We don't know what he is yet. I love Wendell Carter to death, but is Wendell Carter the right center to get you through a playoff series? He's not kind of your traditional rim protecting big, but he's a solid defender. The Magic, need to, one of the reasons why the Magic need to feel these pressure games is they need to see where the pressure points are. They need to see how teams will attack them in postseason situations, and what they actually might need and what they actually will need to compete in the playoffs and compete where it really matters in the postseason. These are the big questions the Magic face this year, and so I can't sit here and tell you exactly
Yeah.
how the Magic are going to spend their money or their trade capital over the next few years. I think the Magic are certainly a team that is ripe to do so very, very, very soon. But they need more proof of concept that what they have works, that what they have can succeed, and then figure out, okay, why did we lose this first round series? We got here. Why did we lose this first round series? What do we actually need to upgrade? I don't know if I think the Magic have some suspicions, but they need clear answers, and the playoffs are the only way to really find a lot of that out.
Yeah, and obviously you got two rookies, Jet Howard and Anthony Black. I'm very excited about Anthony Black. I don't know where is he gonna play. Maybe as a shooting guard, maybe as a point guard. He doesn't shoot the ball much. That's why you got Jet Howard. But maybe Orlando obviously is a young team and they are trying to develop players. So maybe their focus should be maybe on the draft rather than signing players for the foreseeable future.
Honestly, should be both. Like
Both. Okay.
I say this a lot. Like this team is still full of a bunch of kids. Like
Yeah.
getting Joe Ingles, I think is going to help. Joe Ingles can have fun with them a little bit. Like he's definitely not like always the adult in the room. But they need some guys that have been there and that can kind of keep the group loose but serious. And the Magic aren't going to pass on draft picks. Like that's been a big thing with Jeff Weltman. Like unless it's like super late in the first round, he's going to use his lottery picks. He's done a decent job with them. But the Magic have a lot of work to do in a lot of places, and it's hard to pinpoint one thing. And you know we'll see how this year goes. If they look like their playoff team, if they make the postseason, that probably changes their outlook. Then if they kind of struggle again and are back in the lottery, if they're back in the lottery, they'll probably still look to the draft a little bit. They're not going to speed things up unnecessarily, but if they make the postseason, then all of a sudden the Magic are in a real good position to get in on the next disgruntled star or to be a real active player on trades with the extra cap room that they have. So it's everything feels up in the air for the Magic, and certainly there's a lot of possibilities for them.
Yep. So there you got it. So to everybody, go watch the Magic this season. You got Banquero, you got a lot of young talent there. So it's gonna be a great season. Once again, thanks man for being here. We got Philip Roseman right here. So he's the host of Locked On Magic. Go follow. We're gonna subscribe to the Locked On Magic and Locked On NBA too. So that was it, man. Once again, thanks for being here. Maybe we can have you in the future. Hopefully, Orlando can keep cooking and keep going up the ladder. So we'll be watching the Orlando Magic here with Philip. Thank you, man, for being here with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you, man. So go check out. This has been the latest episode of the MOP podcast. I was here 30 minutes with Philip. So hopefully you can enjoy this episode. And until next time, we out, man. Subscribe to this channel and like this video. Once again, thanks to Philip for being here with us. Hopefully you enjoy it. So this was the MOP podcast, everybody. Thank you once again to Philip, man.